When you're working in the service industry, you run into so many people every single day, and you have to learn how to deal with these people. And when you're working as a cabin crew, this is double as true, because you're working in a cabin filled with people. Hey, it's John Bear, so happy to see your beautiful face. And in this video, I'm just going to share with you the #1 important thing that I've learned working as a cabin crew. And for those of you who don't know, a cabin crew is the person who gives you food on the airplane. What I really love about this job, or working in the service industry as a whole, is that you get to experiment with so many chances on how to make a good first impression. You might be thinking making the first impression, that's the #1 important thing. Kind of. But I want to go a little deeper than that. It's not just about making the best first impression, it's about the attitude that you carry with you throughout the entire day, throughout meeting new people. Your attitude is the most important thing, the biggest lesson that I've learned from working in this job. And in this video, I'm going to give you some examples of what I mean, try to unpack what I mean with attitude. And at the end of the video, I'm going to try to give you at least what I think is the best way to construct your attitude so that people have a good impression of you. Does that make sense? In the end of the day, this is just my experience and what I've learned. I'm not a psychologist or anything like that, but I have a lot of experience, so maybe you can find this video useful. All right, so what does the day of a cabin crew look like? You show up to your job, you go to the briefing room, you meet a bunch of new colleagues, a lot of them you've never met before or ever flown with, depending on the size of your airline. And then you go to your flight, and then the flight gets jam-packed with a bunch of strangers. And then you need to take care of these strangers, and you need to answer their every single beckoning call, and you have to give them food, and you're inside a confined space, so you have to make sure that a riot doesn't break out. Now, it's really hard to encapsulate exactly what I mean with the attitude, so I'm gonna try to explain it by going through 2 identical days of a cabin crew, a typical day, one where you have a negative attitude and one where you have a positive attitude. If you have the negative attitude, you wake up 4 a.m., you're tired, you don't even want to go on this flight, you show up to the briefing room, you have a big scowl on your face, nobody says hi to you, you just listen to your supervisor go yeah, telling you how to do your job. Suddenly your supervisor assigns you a position on the plane that you didn't even want, you have to maybe do more responsibilities than you thought you would, you don't feel like working today, so you wish you got an easier position. You get onto the plane, you start welcoming hundreds of passengers on board, all of them strangers you've never seen before. You got a scowl on your face, so they're all a bit mistrusting of you. One of them might walk up to you and complain about how the staff was treating him on the ground before entering the plane. And you might say, "Sorry, sir," without really meaning it. You have the vibe of like, The passenger gets even more angry, goes and sits down. Then take off, you're flying in the air. Time to do service, chicken or beef. You go down the aisle, you get to that same passenger that was complaining to you before, and you notice you've run out of chicken, and you're just begging that he doesn't ask for chicken. Then you talk to him, and he asks for chicken. You do your best to try to sell the beef, but this passenger's not having it. He wants that chicken. This passenger has already had a bad day before the flight even started, and now you're telling him he can't have chicken? At this point, your negative attitude, maybe you're becoming more combative. You're trying to tell him, "Sir, I'm sorry, we don't have chicken. This is all we have. Take it or leave it." Like, your attitude gives off a bit of an antagonistic feel. This passenger, he's furious. He elevates it. He tells you how he's going to complain to your supervisor. When the flight is all finished, you have to go to the briefing room with your manager and chat about how this flight went, taking more time of your day. Now let's take an example of the positive crew going through the exact same day. You wake up at 3 a.m. You're tired, but you decide, okay, I don't know how, but I'm gonna make this a good day. You go to the briefing room, you see everybody is as tired as you are. Most of them didn't get enough sleep. You got a good light step. As you walk in the door, people start greeting you, actually, introduce themselves. Maybe you make a new friend. Your supervisor starts telling you how to do your job, and you're nodding your head because you know how important it is to make sure that you have every detail clear, because an aircraft is a huge responsibility. You get assigned a position with more responsibility than you wanted, but that's okay, because you decide, okay, I'm gonna ask my crew to help me out. I'm gonna rely on my crew to help me if there's something that I'm not sure about. And so you communicate this to the rest of the crew, and they all agree, yeah, okay, if you have any trouble, don't hesitate to ask for help. You go onto the plane, you start welcoming all these passengers on board. You're standing there, open body posture, you're smiling, you're welcoming them on board. Passengers smile back, some of them at least. Then this angry passenger comes up to you, and he had a very bad experience on ground. says how the ground staff treated him before going on board. Maybe they doubted his COVID test or whatever. And you're standing there, you're listening empathetically, you're like, oh, I'm so sorry, sir. My name is John. Please let me know if there's anything I can help you with during this flight. I'm so sorry that this happened to you on the ground, but I will make sure that you have a smooth flight going forward. The passenger maybe grumbles a little bit, but he realizes that he can't really fight you anymore, so he goes and takes a seat. You go into the air, boom, it's time for service. You're doing your service, chicken or beef. You come to this same passenger and you notice you don't have any chicken left. You decide, you talk to him and you say, terribly sorry, but unfortunately, I am out of chicken right now. However, I'm gonna make sure that I go to all my colleagues and ask them if they have any chicken left over. So if you're willing to wait, I'm gonna check the entire airplane to see if we can have a chicken for you. And then further, you tell him that you can't guarantee that there's any chicken, but you're gonna do your absolute best to see if there is any. And you're gonna offer him to have the tray, and maybe just have the beef just in case. He might get hungry, and the passenger, he will say, yeah, okay, give me what you have, and then check back with me if you find any chicken. And you say, thank you so much, sir. I will see if I can do my best to find you a chicken. At the end of the service, you ask all your colleagues to check if there's any chicken left in the ovens or in the other carts. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't, but let's say there isn't. And when you're checking with your colleagues and asking if they have chicken, they all try to help you out because you had that good vibe walking into the briefing room. You made friends with them already, so they're gonna do their best to help you out in this situation. You go back to the previously angry customer to check up on him, and you see that he finished his meal, he seems satisfied, and you tell him, sir, I checked the entire airplane. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find a chicken, but I hope you did enjoy your meal so far. And he might say, yeah, it was all right, despite not getting a chicken. And then you thank him again. You say, thank you so much, sir, for understanding the situation. Hopefully, on the next flight, we can accommodate you better. Then you walk off. You don't get any complaint. You don't have to waste an entire day talking to your manager, debriefing the situation. Everything's better. Okay, so I've described 2 identical days, just with a different attitude. Can you see what I mean now? How your attitude completely changes everything? Whether you're religious or spiritual and you believe in positive and negative energies, in the end of the day, I hope you see from these examples that there's a logical series of events that lead into a certain situation where your attitude has created the foundation for how the whole thing is gonna solve itself. And a very important thing to note about people with negative attitudes, which includes myself, of course, I'm not perfect. Some days I don't have a positive attitude. And I've observed this in myself as well as colleagues, is if you have a negative attitude, you almost always fail to see how you yourself caused the situation you're in. And you always look at the other party and judge them for how they put you in the situation. And if you take this further, this habitual thinking of how things happen to you, people get into very deep holes of blaming society as a whole for all their problems. All right, I hope that wasn't too heavy for you. So going back to what we can extract from these lessons, from these experiences. With a positive attitude, or at least light vibe, you're gonna find yourself drawn to situations that are more favorable to you. Whereas if you have a very heavy attitude, you're gonna trap yourself continually in these situations where things don't really work out for you. And you're gonna be completely blind to how your own attitude got you there in the first place. But of course, we're all human, right? So now, here at the end of the video, I wanna talk to you about some practical steps that I've learned for myself that I apply to try to be more, let's say light attitude, positive attitude consistently, and try not to be in a heavy negative attitude. And note this, that whether or not you're happy, like positive or negative, is a habit. Once you get into the habit of doing these things that I'm going to tell you about, you will become that person more and more. It's going to become more automatic. It's going to be almost like you're going to be unconsciously competent at it. Whereas at the beginning, you have to be kind of conscious of doing these things. Does that make sense? So some negative people might not even know that they're unconsciously competent at being always negative. Right? It's just automatic. But there's a bigger world out there. You can actually be at a baseline where you see things in a positive light. You don't have to have a baseline where you see everything as negative that just hammers at you all the time. So the first practical advice that I've learned for myself is to not judge people. I would say be grateful for them for having the nature that they have. Being grateful of these people will open up all that extra energy reserves that you've used to focus on the negative. And all of a sudden you'll find all this extra energy that you have. Like you'll approach the day with sort of like, oh, this feeling of joy and adventure of like, what could happen? Judging somebody takes so much energy, and you might feel good in the moment. You feel like you're better than them, but in the end of the day, you know, you're creating a sort of wall between yourself and other people. And that's this wall. This is the vibe that they feel. You know, when the angry passenger comes on board, they feel that wall because you're judging. You're habitually judging people. So the first practical thing is just to be grateful for everything, for the small things you have in life. And the one way that I've implemented this for myself in my life is just to write down things I'm grateful for every morning. Simple as that. I've also made the words thank you one of the most common vocabulary that I have in my language. I always say thank you for everything. So the first thing is practicing gratefulness. Make it a habit. The second thing is to habitually stop judging people. And if you're used to habitually judging people, it can be very hard to break out of that, right? So what I did for myself is to always think, I like this person. I think this person might be smart. I think this person could know something that I don't. Sort of like, this is when I'm consciously trying to get the habit. Whereas eventually, you know, it becomes habitual and you don't have to focus on it consciously, but just having this expectation of like, oh, I like this person. Yeah, I like him. I like him. Then you stop judging people. And don't get me wrong, I'm not telling you to have to force yourself to like everyone. Don't be a people pleaser, because there's gonna be people who will drain you if you do that. What I am saying, however, is to give that benefit of the doubt, you know, approach it in a non-judgmental way. But if the person proves to be very heavy and energy demanding, give yourself the same respect to walk away. Do the best you can. If you're in the service industry, do the best you can. But some people will always go after you, and you just walk away at that point. The final most important thing, and I mentioned it many times, is to smile. You know, smile. Keep a smile up. The smile, it's like a higher law. You know, it decides how you're feeling. So even if you're feeling bad, you force yourself to smile, you're gonna feel better. So being habitually grateful, being habitually non-judgmental, and habitually smiling. These three things, make it a habit. You're gonna be that person that has that light attitude, that positive attitude, which everything will just sort of work out much better in your favor. This is what I've learned from being a cabin crew. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video, hearing my personal stories, my personal take on how to deal with people, how to deal with different situations, and hopefully you found it useful. Now, I'm not at all the first person to think of these things. These are very common advice from pretty much any self-help book. One of the best ones being How to Make Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. What a good book that is. I can also recommend Laws of Human Nature. This is a book that I keep around all the time. I really love flipping through this book. It's got a lot of stories and anecdotes about these things. And you know, there are some people, you've probably met them, that just genuinely dislikes everyone all the time. And what I've noticed about them is that they create such a huge energy blocking for themselves by focusing on judging them and focusing on the negative, that they kind of limit the output that they have themselves. So if you might be one of those people, I hope not, then look at it almost like a selfish way. Like by being more grateful and focusing on sort of the positive side of things, you're actually gonna free up so much energy for yourself. I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like a limitless energy that you feel about just being less judgmental about people. All right, so I hope this video didn't come off as being too preachy. I just wanted to share with you my personal experience of what I've learned working as a cabin crew, having to deal with a lot of people and having to make a first impression over and over and over again, allowing me to experiment what works and what doesn't. Take it for what you want. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you want to see more videos of me and what I'm up to, working as a cabin crew, traveling the world, doing video stuff, then hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, leave a thumbs up, because that tells YouTube that this is good content. Once again, I'm John Bear, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.